Okay, so before we move on to applying these filters and the different types of filters and what they do, let's talk a little bit about filter routing. So what does that mean? Well, what I mean by filter routing is that within Massive, you have two different filters, and there are different ways to route them. In other words, you can send your audio signal through the filters using different schematics, and that will greatly influence the sound that comes out on the other side. So let's move now to the routing page in the center window and just take a look at this. So we have our audio generators on the side, and all of these are sending audio into the filter section. That's what comes after the audio generators. Well, you can have, let's just say we're talking about oscillator 1. You can have the signal go 100% to filter 1, and then down here into filter 2, which would follow this line in the center, and then out to the amp and pan section. Or you can have the audio signal split using this X, and it will go equally to filter 1 and filter 2, and then those two signals will be downmixed here at the end and then go into the amp and pan section. So Massive allows you to set up your filter routing in a few different ways. If we move back up to our filter section, you can see this play out practically. So to the left of our two filters, you have a serial and parallel fader here. So when it's fully at the bottom, that means that my two filters are set up in parallel. And just like in your geometry, two parallel lines don't cross. So that means that the audio signal goes through both of them separately. And that's really important. And that would be signified here down in our routing page by just going across the straight line through each filter, then downmix at the end. If I raise this fader all the way to the top, now my filters are in serial. So you can think of that as a series, meaning it will go through filter 1 first. The audio will go through filter 1 first. And then the output of filter 1 will be sent down into filter 2. Then the output of filter 2 will be sent to the amplitude section. And that is indicated by this center line here that passes in between these two filters. So our audio signal would go over here into filter 1. Filter 1 filters out some frequencies, affects it in a certain way, and then it will drop down here into filter 2, and then output over here to the amp and pan section. And the reason that's important is because when you're shaping the sounds, applying two separate filters independent of each other to an audio source and then mixing the two together will have a much different effect than applying one filter to the audio source and then taking that filtered output and putting it into another filter and then sending that out. Now, since this is a fader and not simply just a switch, you can create a blend here. So what would that mean? Well, if I have the fader at 3/4 of the way up, like this, then I'm taking the audio from my audio generators, sending it mostly into filter 1, and then some of that output goes to filter 2 and then out. But I'm still sending a little bit of the original audio into filter 2, where it will be processed independently. So you can use this fader to really create a blend of how these filters are affecting the sound that you put into it. And then, conversely, if I have this fader down here more towards the bottom, it's not full parallel, but it's just about right here, then I'm sending most of the signal through both filters simultaneously to be mixed. but I'm still getting a little bit of filter 1's output into filter 2 and adding that to the signal. So there's really a lot of options here. And the routing that you choose for your filters will have as I said, a very significant impact on the sound that pops out on the other side. So along with this whole thing, you have on the other side of the filters a mix fader. And the mix fader allows you to select how much output from each filter you want to have. So you're going to be using this fader in conjunction with the serial and parallel fader to be sure. So if this fader is all the way at the top, obviously it's just taking filter 1's output. If it's all the way at the bottom, then we're just sending filter 2's output to the amplitude. Or you can create, you can select any ratio in between using this fader. In the filters, you also have these other faders that are just right next to each filter independently, and this is just an output level. Okay, so I can say, I like filter 1, but I don't want to send too much of it into filter 2. I just want a little bit, so I can pull this down, and then maybe I could have filter 2's output fader all the way up. So there's a lot going on here, and for those of us without an electrical engineering background, it's a lot to wrap our heads around, and it is even for me as well. But really the key is just to have a general understanding of what this filter routing means, and then just tweaking these to get the sound that you want to come out on the other side, okay? And then as you spend more and more time designing patches, you'll start to get a much better feel for how this all works in conjunction with itself. Okay, so that's filter routing. In the next lecture, we will apply these filters, and I will see you over there.